Maryland football gets absolutely smacked against Indiana.
You are Locked On Terps, your daily podcast on the Maryland Terps, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, everyone? I'm Trey Moore, host of Locked On Terps, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So thank you guys for making us part of your day. And today's episode is brought to you by the Gametime app. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. Maryland football gets absolutely smacked by Indiana, and there's so many different points that we have to touch, but luckily today we have a basketball game as well to get our minds a little bit off of this Maryland loss to Indiana, where it absolutely was horrible. My prediction was completely wrong, and I'll give Indiana credit there. They were just much better than us, and I'm still unsure about Indiana long term, but this is more about Maryland football and the million problems that we have. And thank God it's basketball season, to be completely honest. We're going to need a good basketball team after what's gone down, because I just have so many concerns. We're only going to start with it and then move into the basketball game tonight. But Maryland football is absolutely falling apart. You guys all saw the score. You guys all know what happened. Maryland football got absolutely dominated at home by Indiana football, 55-10. And it was a 21-point spread. So losing 55-10, losing by 45 is pretty bad. It's pretty bad. So I think there's so many different things to start with, so many different things to talk about when it comes to this game. I think number one, before you dive into the actual specifics of the game, Maryland's Mike Locksley, I think there's just a ton of question marks, man, about Mike Locksley. And I think they're warranted. I think they're absolutely warranted, because right now, where this team currently stands, it's pretty horrible. It's pretty horrible where this team currently is. Our record honestly looks much better than it actually is. Like, that 4-4 looks a lot better than how our record actually is when you actually look at the grand scheme of Maryland football right now. And the fact that that game was on CBS and everybody was watching, it kind of had me like, I was like, I don't know if this is one I want everyone to be seeing for Maryland football. And Mike Locksley just ain't getting the job done right now. And I said last week, I'm pretty sure it was last week, I said, I think he might have to be fired. I honestly think that about Mike Locksley. I love Mike Locksley. I think he's done good things for Maryland football, but where this thing is headed is just not in a good spot. And I understand giving him one more year just based off of the recruiting classes, where the team's at. We have a chance to be really solid next year, but who knows who stays after the performance that we're putting on. And it's just every phase is bad. When you lose 55-10, it's not like you're pointing to one thing and being like, oh, that part of your football team was not good. Every phase of Maryland football was really bad. There wasn't a single part of Maryland's football team that I thought played well on Saturday against Indiana. And I just thought it was a poor effort for homecoming at home. And Mike Locksley got significantly outcoached. And we know Indiana's head coach. A lot of people think he's kind of the stuff right now, and I agree. Really good head coach. It's unexcusable for Mike Locksley to get this badly outcoached. I understand Indiana's much better than us. I understand they're more talented than us, but dang, man, it's pretty bad for Maryland football. And the next point I kind of want to make, and something that's unraveling, is Malik Washington. I don't think it's his fault at all. I want to start there. Don't think it's his fault at all. There's way too much pressure on the kid from the start. We didn't even try to establish the run game at the start. I thought, okay, the first couple possessions, Indiana looked pretty bad. I was like, oh, maybe Maryland has something this game. When Indiana looked pretty bad, the pick, Maryland was able to get 3 points, and then Indiana gave it back. And I was like, oh, maybe Maryland can do something here. It was way too much throwing of the football early on. I was like, Come on, this is our opportunity when we're not down to actually try and establish some run game, to put the clock down, to allow Maryland football to potentially stay on the field and keep Indiana off the field. We didn't even try that. Right away, we put a ton of pressure on Malik Washington, and it's too much pressure on him. It just is. For a freshman quarterback that we all know is insanely talented and really good and arguably the best freshman quarterback in the nation, is not going to look good. There's not a quarterback in this country that's going to look good with how Maryland's playing right now. I don't care who you talk about. I don't care if you talk about the Ohio State QB, Julian Sayin, Ty Simpson at Alabama, or even the kid that we just played this week against Indiana and Fernando Mendoza. Nobody will look good with Maryland's current offensive line, Maryland's current run game, their offensive scheme, how much pressure they put on the quarterback. There are very few quarterbacks in the world that would look good and that would win games in this. Like maybe Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen would be able to figure it out. But Malik Washington ain't that yet. So something has to be said for the poor game plan offensively and just putting too much on his shoulders. And that's something that has to change. It's like, what do we expect from the kid? Like in total, Iverson Howard had 4 carries. DeJuan Williams had 5. Nolan Ray had 3. That was our carries right there. It's just way too much pressure on Malik Washington. He threw the ball 31 times. He ended up having 2 interceptions. He didn't look great. He made some throws. There was one throw that he made early on the football game where I was like, dang, that's a big time throw. But and then he followed that up with an interception. There was one where it was like he was going to his left side. And the guy sat right in the middle of the zone defense. It was a beautiful. I think it was Caleb Webb. It was a beautiful throw, one of the better throws you'll see. But it was just Malik Washington starting. I don't want to say unravel, but he doesn't look great. And against Indiana's defense that's been pretty good all year, and we're putting all the pressure on the kid, I wouldn't expect him to look that good either. It's just what it is. It's too much on Malik Washington, and we know the arm and the talent is there, but there's just some things that are going on. The 2 interceptions were not great, and he's also becoming kind of inefficient, not being able to find easy completions. There was a stat that said he was 7 of 20 on passes that traveled past the line of scrimmage. So the 16 of 31 doesn't look awful, but a lot of those are just passes behind the line of scrimmage. I think that's kind of our extension of the run game. But first multi-interception game, I can't really blame him. Mike Locksley said, I hate putting it all on having a freshman to have to carry us through there. And that's where we're going to need to have some answers for taking pressure off him when he's not at his best. And I agree with Mike Locksley's comments, but it's like we're in game 8 now, or I guess we're heading into game 9. Like we're way more than halfway through the season. By now we have to figure that out. Like by now we have to have that figured out, how to take some pressure off him, because that's what we kind of wanted. That's what we said at first that we were going to do, is we were going to not put a ton of pressure on the quarterback. It was going to be a quarterback-friendly offense, and it just hasn't been that at all. And I understand there's ways for him to get better, but there's just too much pressure on him. Maryland's defense got absolutely dogged in the run game. Absolutely. It was like unacceptable. And Fernando Mendoza had a quote. I forget exactly what it was, but you guys know it. It was like, if you're going to try and stop the pass game, we'll just run it down your throat. And that's what they did. They ran it down our throat. All of the running backs were efficient. They had 3 running backs over 80 yards. That just can't happen. I thought Maryland's run defense so far this year started off in a really good spot, has definitely teetered off. And then this game, it was like, dang, the game plan just wasn't there. The kid Black had 14 carries for 110 yards, 7.9 average, a touchdown. Roman Hemby got his get back, 18 carries, 88 yards, 4.9 average, 1 touchdown. Kobe Martin, 11 carries, 80 yards, 7.3 yards per carry, 1 touchdown. And then Fernando's brother got into the game. Alberto had a carry for 53 yards. That just is not acceptable. They ran it down our absolute throat. And some could say that they ended up missing their best receiver this game in Elijah Surratt, who got hurt. Some would say, I think Maryland's game plan was just wrong. I mean, I think everyone would say that after the game, but during the game, you might be like, okay. Or before the game, you might be like, okay, like stop Indiana's big time passing game. But I think if you can't stop the run, it's just not going to matter. And they ran it down our throat. Our defense looked tired. Our defense looked unmotivated. It's honestly sad to watch for Maryland football. There's a billion problems with this thing. We'll continue to talk about it, but I do want to get into hoops for Maryland basketball because Maryland basketball plays tonight. Let's talk about what we can expect, a little bit of a preview in a game that we're supposed to win, but we'll talk about some things to look at next. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of the game or you want to ride a hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to the fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets on a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. And right now, FanDuel's giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. So Maryland basketball has a game tonight. And after that negative tone about Maryland football, I'm excited to watch our basketball team tonight, who could totally have their own problems this year. But before the year starts, I won't sit here and be like, okay, Maryland basketball is going to have problems. But Maryland basketball does have a game tonight against Coppin State at 6:30. So you guys might be seeing this after the game, but there's a couple of different things that we're definitely going to look at. We're going to break down the game tomorrow. I think everyone's kind of excited to see something else. Obviously, we start the Buzz Williams era tonight. That's really exciting coming from Texas A&M. Having a coach that just seems a little bit more committed to Maryland basketball. Obviously, I thought Kevin Willard did a pretty good job at his time here. Like, I'm not going to sit up here and act like Kevin Willard didn't do a good job. Like, he did a really good job recruiting. He did a really good job, I thought, last year with the team. But I think we can all agree that Buzz Williams seems a tad more committed, especially with how Kevin Willard left out. And I think this is an opportunity for Buzz Williams to take on a new program and to really put his stamp on things. And I'm really excited to see that. We start the Buzz Williams era. So we'll see if he can get over the hump that Kevin Willard wasn't able to get over. Mark Turgeon wasn't really able to get over to get Maryland basketball back into kind of the glory days, if you will. I think everyone's kind of excited for that and wants to see if Maryland basketball is going to be able to do that. I think that's a big part of today's game and big part of something that we're going to definitely be watching. And so I want to see the Buzz Williams there. How does it look? Does it look different? What is the deal? Does it look different from how Maryland has been in the past stylistically? Those are some different things that I'll be looking at tonight at 6:30. And so I don't want to talk too much about Coppin State. And there's a couple players that are good for them, but we shouldn't have any worries against them. I think Maryland's health is something else that I'm going to be looking at. We know Solomon Washington is expected to be out with an ankle sprain. We know Miles Wright was in a boot in the exhibition game against UMBC. It doesn't seem likely to play either. We'll see if Coit and Isaiah Watts play. So those are going to be huge kind of things to look at for Maryland basketball. I think any way you place it, it doesn't really matter for tonight. But remember, guys, we get Georgetown soon. Georgetown's very soon, and it's going to matter against Georgetown. Georgetown has a good team this year, so I think that's also something that is going to be really going to be looking at for Maryland basketball tonight is how does the injuries look? Who actually is playing, who's not? Because let's be honest, a lot of us don't really know exactly what's going on with it, and I think that's going to be a big indicator in how we feel going forward. And then I think there's a couple guys, two guys in particular, I think all Terps fans are really excited about. I think Pharrell Payne is one of the best players in the country. I think we're all excited about Pharrell Payne and what he can bring. We need him to replace kind of Julian Reese and Derek Queen combined, I've been saying. And I think he'll kind of be able to do that, I hope, in a way. He's not going to be able to combine as good as them, but I'm hoping he can bring some of that production that those two guys put in last year and Julian Reese has put in for the last couple of years at Maryland basketball. That's definitely something I want to see. But I want to see Pharrell Payne be the first team All Big Ten type of guy. He's that talented. If he's aggressive, which Buzz Williams I know is harping on, and we honestly need him to be an All Big Ten type of player for Maryland. If Maryland basketball is successful this year, I think Pharrell Payne is an All Big Ten type of player, and he's a guy that we're all going to be wanting to watch because the team is going to go as far as he goes. If he's elite, then we have a chance to be good this year. If he's not very good, I think it's going to be tough for Maryland basketball to be a tournament team. And I think right now, I think a lot of places before the season had us projected like an 8 seed-ish, which I think first year, if Buzz Williams just gets into the tournament, I'll be happy, to be completely honest. So you can't mess around with any of these games against Coppin State. Not that Maryland is going to lose tonight. We're like over 20-point favorites, but I do think that it is a goal this year. We want to be able to make the tournament, and starting off right is going to be important. And then the second player, I think we're all really intrigued by that. I'm really interested in because, or I'll explain it after I say his name, is Darius Adams. I think Darius Adams has a chance to be an all or a freshman of the year type of player in the Big Ten, like similar to how Derek Queen was. I think he's going to get that opportunity to be able to do that. There's definitely some other freshmen that are good in the Big Ten. I don't think it's not as strong as last year where we were staring at it and I was like, Dylan Harper looks like the best player in the country, maybe. Same as Ace Bailey, potentially. And Illinois has this kid, Yakichonis, and they also have this kid, Will Riley, and there's another kid on another team that looks like last year was really competitive. I think Darius Adams could be in that conversation, and early season, especially while this injury bug is a little bit iffy. We know Darius Adams is healthy. He's a guy that we're going to be looking at to be playing at a high level and to do some good things. I think that's going to be really big. He's going to come in instantly. I think he should be starting tonight. And that's going to be really big because we're going to need his production early on. And can he replicate some of the success? Obviously, a lot of people compare him just because he's a freshman to Derek Queen. Can he replicate some sort of season that Derek Queen had? I'm not expecting him to be Derek Queen because that was a different level of college player, but I just want to see how good potentially can he be because I think it's pretty good. And so I think that's definitely something I'll be watching for in this game. And I definitely want to see Darius Adams, see how he shoots the ball. Because if you guys remember in the scrimmage, he ended up being our second leading scorer, scored the ball a lot, but he didn't shoot the ball particularly well. So that's something else that I'm going to be looking at for Maryland football or Maryland basketball. And we're going to see Darius Adams, and we'll see how the lineup comes out tonight. I don't know. There's like really on this roster, it feels like there's only like a couple guys that I'm like, okay, they won't play. Other than that, I'm like, everyone might play. Like there's a lot of different bodies. There's a lot of different types of players. And I think that Buzz Williams is still trying to figure that out. So that's something else that I'm going to be looking at tonight. The first game will tell a whole lot in terms of lineups, the injury report, the Buzz Williams pressure, and I'm excited for it. I'm about to turn it on in a couple of hours. I think it's on the Big Ten Network, so we don't have to have it on Big Ten Plus. I think I saw that. Not 100% sure, but I want to get some of this football out of my brain because it hasn't been good for Maryland. So that's definitely something I'm going to be looking at, something that's really important heading into this week. And I'm definitely excited to watch for Maryland football this year. And so, or Maryland basketball. I keep saying Maryland football. I've just been used to saying football. Let's get to back to Maryland football for a little bit. Who actually played well? Who did some good things? We'll talk about that next. College football is back, and I couldn't be more excited. The tailgates, the rivalries, the energy in the stands, there's just nothing like it. But let's be real, actually getting tickets can feel like more of a battle than the game itself. Hidden fees, prices jumping at checkout, that's why I use Gametime, the app that gives advantage back to fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. The app is made super simple. I could see the exact view from my seat before buying. I love zone deals too. Pick the section, Gametime picks the seat, and you save big. Honestly, it's faster and cheaper and less stressful than any other way I've bought tickets. So take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOTS on college for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go download the Gametime app today. So, okay, so let's look at the MVPs from Maryland football game. I want to shout out guys that actually played well because I feel like it just there's just limited positivity to go with Maryland football. There was a lot of negatives, let's be real, but there were some guys that I thought did some good things. We'll start on the offensive side of the ball for Maryland football. I do want to shout out DeJuan Williams, who again had a big receiving game. Had 4 receptions for 78 yards and a touchdown. We needed that from DeJuan Williams, to be completely honest with. A receiving game that wasn't very good. He made up for most of it, to be completely honest. So he's an interesting guy. I think he's had a solid year. He's been a really good receiving back in terms of actually running the football. Hasn't done much, has kind of replaced what we thought Nolan Ray would be, who's really just struggled and hasn't really gotten much of an opportunity. But it was good to see against Indiana somebody make some type of impact. But I don't think we love DeJuan Williams being our receiving leader, which seems to be kind of a theme that's been popping up recently. But hey, if he's making it work, he's making it work. But I thought he was the MVP. Also, shout out Christian Martin for coming in and going 2 for 2 for 14 yards. He's looked like a solid backup. I think next year he could potentially go somewhere and start. And who knows? I don't want to say this, but if Malik Washington keeps getting beat up, we don't put a good team around him, Christian Martin might be our starter next year. I think that's a possible thing that could potentially happen. But DeJuan Williams, I thought was the offensive MVP. I just thought he played better than everyone else. Like there's not a lot of names. Like our quarterback didn't play very well. There's absolutely no running game, and through the receiving game, DeJuan Williams, who's our running back, had the best day. I thought Jaleel Farouk caught a couple of big passes. Caleb Webb did. Dorian Fleming had 1 catch, but outside of that, there just wasn't a whole lot going. So shout out DeJuan Williams for having a big receiving game for Maryland football. And then when we talk about the defensive MVP, I'll give it to Jamar Glasker. He gave us a chance at the beginning to kind of be in the game with that pick, who continues to force turnovers. He really did give us the opportunity to feel like we were in the game, to make a big play, to give us momentum, to get the crowd up a little bit. But outside of that, there was a lot of bad. There was. But I thought the big interception gave us a chance early on. I knew we were going to have to turn over them in a way. And you guys know how it goes. If you're going to beat a team like Indiana, who's the number 2 team in the country, that's really good right now, that has a lot of things going for them, you're probably going to have to force a turnover one way or the other. And Jamar Glasker did that, and he's been doing that for us, but it didn't matter. And for Maryland football to get back to winning and to winning games quickly, that's going to have to be something that really continues to build. Someone else I thought looked good, Sidney Stewart looked really good, or I thought looked pretty good again. He had a half a sack, but he continues to look pretty good. I thought Jalen Husky, for being out for the first part of the game, I thought was pretty good. Messiah Home played a lot of the game. I thought he was pretty solid, but there was just definitely a lot of parts of the football team that could get a lot better that just isn't there right now. And you start thinking about the offseason and you wonder, how many of these guys are going to be around next year? There might be I hate to say, but I don't want to see an exodus of players, but it's how it's gone for Maryland football in the past. And so there's just going to have to be a lot that fixes and a lot that changes, because right now it ain't it. It just ain't it. It was hard for me to come up with a couple of players that played well. And I think no matter who your opponent is, you don't want to be on that side of things where you're like, who played well? Who can I give this to? There just wasn't a lot. And even like those were a little bit of force, I feel like. So basically that's kind of how I see it. But that's all we have for today. Thank you guys for listening to Locked on Terps. See how the basketball team does tonight. I think we're all excited for that. But thank you guys for listening to Locked on Terps. We're here every day talking Maryland football and basketball. So thank you guys for listening to Locked on Terps.